Hey, what's going on, guys?
On today's project, I'm going to show you guys how I built this gate. I'm going to run through everything step by step, so without wasting time, let's get rolling. Hey guys, here's a quick mock-up of our design. We're going to start with a 2x4 gate frame shown in red. Feel free to pause the image if you want to take a longer look, but we're going to get right into the build. So I decided to make my gate 68 inches tall, so I cut the vertical 2x4s at 61 inches to account for the extra 3.5 inches on either side for the other 2x4. So here I am cutting the vertical 2x4s at 61 inches. And here I am marking the second 2x4 at 61 inches and cutting it here. Now we're left with two boards exactly 61 inches. With our vertical boards cut, let's measure the width of the gate opening.
So we got our width measured, as you can see here, we're right at 48. So I want to have a 1/2 inch of play on either side. So I'm going to cut it at 47. So I have a 1/2 inch on this side as well as that side, and we'll make our cut.
So I actually decided to cut at 46.5 just to give my gate a little bit more play to make sure if it sags over time that it won't hit the gate posts. So I'm cutting here both of those at the 46.5 inch length, and I used the first one as a template to describe the length of the second one, and then I made my cut on the miter saw. So with the sides of our gate frame assembled, it's time to start screwing it together. So in order to screw our gate frame together, I use the Kreg pocket hole jig, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. Now I suppose you could do this without a pocket hole jig just by kind of screwing at an angle, but this jig is going to make your life so much easier. So what you see me doing now is I'm actually drilling the pocket holes in the vertical 2x4. So you're going to go drill 2 pocket holes per board. This is a repetitive process for both of the vertical gate frame pieces. So here I am just showing you what those pocket holes look like in the board, and then I moved over and took care of the pocket holes for the other vertical gate frame piece. So with all the pocket holes in place, it's time to screw the vertical pieces to the horizontal pieces. So I used clamps to line everything up, and then it was as simple as screwing in through our pocket holes and joining the right angle together. And if you don't have any clamps, I highly recommend that you spend the money and get some. It's going to make your life so much easier for this project, and I'm sure you're going to use them on a ton of other projects just because they're so handy. So at this point, I was able to corral my girlfriend to help me get the vertical piece level before I screwed it in. So again, I have my clamps. She's keeping an eye on the level to make sure that everything is looking square. And then I went and screwed that in as you're seeing now. And here's a quick look at us screwing in the final corner of the gate to give us a completed gate frame. So with the gate frame completed, I went and made my measurement for the 2x6 interior brace that we're going to put 10 inches down from the top. So once I had the measurement, I transcribed it onto the 2x6 as you're seeing there, marked it with my square for easy cutting, and then did a quick chop saw cut to make sure we had it all squared away. So after confirming that everything looked good with the cut from a dry fit perspective, I went and I drilled the pocket holes on the first side of the 2x6, then flipped it over and again drilled the pocket holes for the other side. And here I am putting the 2x6 interior brace in place, and I'm checking to make sure it's exactly 10 inches from the top. Make sure this is very precise because it's going to make your life a lot easier when you install the 1-inch balusters later. So I decided to turn the gate frame vertical so I could attach the clamps more easily, and once I had it vertical, checked that everything was 10 inches from the top, I went ahead and screwed in the pocket holes. I'm not sure why I put those pocket holes so close together. Don't do that. That was stupid. So stupid, in fact, that I went back and put an additional support screw in the bottom there.
So now we're going to go ahead and put our cross in between. The way we did this is I got it flush with that corner there. I'm going to go ahead and mark a straight line down, and then we did the same thing with this one over here. Got it in that corner, and then we're going to go ahead and mark a straight line down and cut it.
So I used a combination square to make my marks. You could also use clamps and then scribe on the other side of the board. Then I'm making my adjustments on the miter saw and making my cuts accordingly. And after making my cuts correctly, you can see that it fits in there nice and snug. And also, because I'm going to cover up all of these holes with pickets later on, I kind of abandoned the Kreg pocket hole jig and just kind of started screwing in at the angles. So once I had my first cross beam in place, it was time to go back through and do the second cross beam. So the way that I did this is I marked the midpoint of the first cross beam, and then I used a clamp to set the other beam right in the center. I then scribed along the second beam there, along the gate frame, made the cut with my miter saw, and then I had to use the hammer to get it in place because I made the cut so tight. Then I just double checked that it was right in the center, and then did the same thing for the other one, scribing on the opposite side and making the cut on my miter saw. This seemed to work for me, but I'm sure there's other ways to do it. And here I am just kind of tapping the second brace into place. And here's a look at where we are so far. Fortunately, everything was so snug where it just stood up on its own, and I was able to go through later on and screw everything together. Again, not using the pocket hole jig, just screwing it at an angle since we're gonna cover all that up later.
Hey guys, super quick interruption. If you wouldn't mind, please consider dropping a like down below to help me out with the algorithm, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see the rest of the projects in my backyard transformation series. I really would appreciate it. It would help me grow. And now back to the gate. Thanks.
So at this point, we're gonna go ahead and install our 2x2 baluster. So again, confirming that's 10 inches there. Here's our 2x2 board. We're gonna mark that at 10 inches each and make all those cuts now. So I actually cut the first one and just confirmed that it worked out in terms of a template and was fitting nice and snug. And once it looked good, I used it to establish the size for all the rest, marked it as a template, marked everything there, and then just made a bunch of cuts so that I only had to cut once and then install all the rest. So in order to actually put in the balusters, I pre-drilled both sides and then got it in place and simply screwed it in. So you can see I'm using a 2x4 as a spacer there and then screwing in through the pre-drilled hole. And you can fill this, with wood filler later on. I didn't do that just because I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but that's just how I took care of installing the balusters. So once the gate frame and the balusters were in place, I attached leftover fence pickets to the gate using a bunch of brad nails that I had, and I'll leave a link to all the tools and nails in the description. So for the interior pickets, I pre-cut those to make sure they were flush with the bottom as well as flush with where the baluster started. So I went and I pulled everything in tight. I put about 4 brad nails in per connection point and went and did this all the way across. So as you can see, what I decided to do was attach the longer pickets to the gate first and have a little bit of overhang. And once I had all of those nailed into place with brad nails, I went back later on and I cut them to size with a circular saw. So I just made the cut there on the miter saw, and then I attach a longer picket up top after attaching those with the nails as you're seeing. And once everything was in place, I grabbed my circular saw and ran it along the gate frame kind of as a track and just trimmed everything to size as you're seeing. So at this point, the gate frame and all the pickets were installed, and I went ahead and lifted the gate into place. I put a little bit of blocking at the bottom to get it about 3 inches off the ground. Once I had the height right, I made sure it was level there, and then we went and established the location for the hinges. I'll leave a link in the description for the hinges used, but instead of using the hardware that came with the hinge pack, we had some leftover LedgerLok screws from our deck build, and because those seemed so much heavier duty, we used those instead. So here we are after making the marks of where we're going to establish the hinge location. We installed the LedgerLok screws, and here we are attaching the actual hardware that came with the hinges to the gate. The last step is just to install the additional gate hardware for the opening latch, and that's what I'm taking care of there. Again, links will be in the description for all the tools used. Then gave it a quick check. Bingo.